Alright, in the last video we took a look at really basic autonomous. Driving, picking up, basic movements that had no data that they were working with. Just what was happening with the motors, some directional stuff. In this video we're going to take a look at using some sensors to calibrate the robot. Being in the last one, in order to those autonomous to work properly, you have to have the robot set up perfectly, which is never going to be the actual case. So we need to play around with how that's working. If you look at my basic robot here, let's zoom in a little bit, at the front, I've got a push button. So there's a claw and there's a push button. Now, this probably won't work for every one of your robots. You're going to have to come up with your own designs for these sorts of things. But what I'm going to use is this little push button here to calibrate this arm so I know the exact location of it all the time. Just step back a little bit. There's our robot. Alright, so to do this, first thing I want to do is we're going to bump into the code. I've got this nice code here, but we're just going to start from the beginning again. Hop into my devices, and I'm going to add a new device for that bumper switch. So there's my bumper, and that bumper is in port number 12. So I'm going to go there. I only have one bumper, so that's alright, we'll call it bumper. And you'll see when I did that, over in my menus under sensing, I've got some sensing that showed up at the bottom for my bumper. So I've got bumper pressed. Cool. So now what I want to do is calibrate that claw when I first get my robot started. So I've got my when started command here, and I'm going to come down to control, and I've got a whole bunch of different options here. So I'm going to say use an if else command. So if something is true, then do this. Else, do something different. So I'm going to come to sensing, find that button. So if bumper is pressed. So if my bumper is pressed, I want that motor up here. So I want to spin my claw motor. Also spin claw. I want to spin reverse because I want it to open. And let's say 120 degrees. So it's just going to, if it's touching that button when it starts, it's just going to spin it back 120 degrees. And when it's finished that, I'm going to set the claw position now to 0. So it's calibrating. It's saying, okay, we're going to move back, and then I'm going to set this new position to 0 degrees. So this means that I've got something I can reference throughout the rest of the program. Now, if the bumper is not pressed, I want to move it forward until it is pressed. So I'm going to say spin claw forward now. So it's going to spin the claw forward, and I've got a command here which is wait until. So I'm going to say wait until sensing, we'll find that bumper again. So wait until bumper is pressed. And I can even grab this and duplicate it, stick it down here. So else spin forward until the bumper is pressed, then spin in reverse for 120 degrees and set the position to 0. So that is going to calibrate what the claw is going to do. Every time the robot starts, it's either going to start with the button pressed, calibrate to open 120 degrees and set that position to 0, or it's going to go spin the claw forward until the button is pressed, then it's going to reverse 120 degrees and set to 0. So if we download that to the robot and just move in a little bit, so there's my claw. We'll go play. We should see that claw going forward, hitting the button, and moving back 120 degrees. Cool. Now, don't know if that was quite far enough. So let's change this 120 to 300 and see what happens. So we'll download that to the robot again. And we'll hit play again. There we go. So that's a little nicer. It's quite a bit further open. And now this position here, where my arm is, that is my 0 position. So I could say close arm certain values now without using that bumper.